Today, we are going to unpack a paper that really truly changed the game in modern economics. It's from 1972 by Robert Lucas, and it's called Expectations and the Neutrality of Money. Now, let's be real. That title sounds a little dense, but I promise you, the idea behind it is something that affects all of us every single day.
This quote just cuts right to the chase. It gets at the heart of this huge economic puzzle. For the longest time, the classical view was that money is just a veil. It's just a convenient way to measure the real economy. The stuff we actually make and do. But we all know it's not that simple, right? When that veil flutters, when central banks start playing with the money supply, the real world seems to sputter and shake.
Really think about it. The Federal Reserve says one thing, and boom, the stock market goes wild. They change a rate, and suddenly it affects whether companies are hiring, what your mortgage is going to cost, even the price of milk. If money is just a yardstick, why does it have so much power over your job and your wallet? That is the exact question Lucas wanted to answer.
And look, this wasn't just some small academic quibble. No, this was one of the biggest puzzles in macroeconomics, a real head-scratcher that had the sharpest minds stumped for decades. For a long time, the whole debate was basically stuck in a ditch. You had these really powerful theories, saying money shouldn't matter for the real economy, but then you had all this real-world data showing that, well, it clearly does. They couldn't both be right, could they?
The entire puzzle really just boils down to a clash between two major ideas about how the economy works, ideas that seem to completely contradict each other.
So on one side, you have this classic idea, monetary neutrality. The theory goes that in the long run, if a government doubles the amount of money, all that happens is all the prices double. Your salary doubles, a loaf of bread doubles, nothing real changes. It's just a veil. But then, on the other side, you have the Phillips curve. This is what policymakers were seeing with their own eyes. It looked like there was a trade-off. If you accepted a little more inflation, you could get a little less unemployment. It felt like central banks could actually create jobs just by printing money.
So here is the million-dollar question that Lucas took on. How on earth can both of these things be true? How can money be this totally neutral thing in the long run, but in the short run, it's this powerful force causing real booms and busts?
Now, to solve this, Lucas did something brilliant. He didn't just throw a bunch of math at the problem. He came up with this incredible thought experiment. He asked us to imagine a very simple world, an economy made up of a bunch of isolated islands.
But before we visit these islands, we need to get one core concept down, and this is the absolute key that unlocks the whole thing: imperfect information. It's a fancy-sounding term for something super simple that we all deal with every day. It just means nobody knows everything. We all have to make decisions based on our own little slice of the world.
Okay, so here's how the model works. I want you to imagine you're a baker on one of these islands. The only thing you can see are the prices right there, on your island. You have no clue what's going on in any of the other islands. Now, in this world, if you suddenly see the price of your bread go up, it can only be because of one of two things. Either people on your island suddenly really want more of your bread, a real demand boom, or the government just flew a helicopter over all the islands and dropped cash everywhere. In other words, inflation.
And this setup puts you, the baker, into a constant guessing game. Every time you see a price change, you have to ask yourself, what is actually going on here?
So let's play it out. You wake up one morning, you go to your bakery, and suddenly people are lining up, willing to pay more for your bread. Now that sounds great, right? But maybe not.
Because you're immediately faced with this critical question. Is this a real signal that my bread is suddenly super popular and I should make more? Or is it just a monetary signal, meaning the government printed money and pretty soon the price of my flour and yeast is going to go up too?
And the stakes here are really high. If it's a real boom, this is your moment. You should fire up the ovens, work overtime, maybe even hire an assistant and cash in. But if it's just inflation, working harder is completely pointless. Your costs for flour and everything else are about to go up by the same amount, so in real terms, you're not gaining anything.
But here is the genius of the model. Because of that imperfect information, because you can't see the other islands, you can't be 100% sure which it is. So what's the logical thing to do? You hedge your bets. You figure, it's probably a bit of both. So you decide to work a little bit harder, produce a few extra loaves, just in case.
Okay, so that's what one baker on one island does. Now let's zoom out. What happens when every single producer on every single island starts thinking the exact same way?
Let's go back to that helicopter. Imagine the central bank does a surprise money drop across all the islands. Nobody saw it coming. It's an unanticipated shock. Well, what happens is every single producer,
The baker, the candlestick maker, everyone sees their local price go up. And because of that imperfect information, none of them know for sure that it's just inflation. So what do? They all make that same rational debt. They all hedge, and they all decide to produce just a little bit more. And when every single person across the entire economy decides to produce a little more, you get a real economy-wide boom in jobs and output.
And here it is, right from the paper itself, the core conclusion, that Phillips curve, that short-term connection between money and jobs, it exists for one reason and one reason only. Because we, as individual people, can't perfectly tell the difference between a real signal and a monetary one.
So that veil of money, it's not magic. It's not some mysterious force. The veil flutters because of a very simple, very human problem. We're all just trying to make the best decisions we can with the limited information we have. It's our collective, rational confusion that gives monetary policy its short-term power. And I've got to tell you, this idea was way more than just a clever answer to a puzzle. It was like a bomb went off in macroeconomics. It completely changed how we understand policy. For one, it put the idea of rational expectations at the very center of economics. This idea that people aren't dumb. They use all the information they can get to figure out what's coming next. And that leads to this huge policy conclusion. Only surprise, monetary policy can actually create a real boom. Because if a central bank announces ahead of time, hey everyone, we're going to print a bunch of money next Tuesday, then everyone on the islands will know that price increases are just inflation. They won't work any harder, and all that policy will do is raise prices.
And that leaves us with this really deep, fascinating final thought. What Lucas showed us is that our expectations aren't just us passively guessing what might happen. Our expectations are an active force that actually shapes economic reality. If what we all believe is going to happen can cancel out a policy before it even starts, what does that really mean about control of the economy? So the next time you hear about a central bank decision, remember those islands. And remember that what happens next doesn't just depend on what the bank does, but on what millions of us expect is going to happen.